Greetings and welcome. I'm Rebecca Carner, Biofield tuner, and I have just a little bit of adjusting to do this morning, I see. All right, there we go. Welcome. I'm going live. I'm filming this on September 10th, 2025. Yesterday was September 9th, which was 9/9, and then 2025, 2, 2, and 5 add up to 9. Yesterday was 999. Some people call it a portal. Between the lunar eclipse last Sunday and then the 999 portal yesterday, there's been a lot going on in the collective. There's certainly been a lot going on for me personally. Today's topic is dreaming without borders, and in some ways, today's theme is really apropos, meaning timely, to this window of time that we're in September of 2025. And as always, with these energies and with these tunings and contemplations, they are timeless and they are relevant every time you find them, whenever you watch this video. So I'm going to talk about some specifics in the right now because that informs the creation of this video, of this transmission. And again, these transmissions, these energies, these frequencies are always applicable. I am not, in fact, an astrologer, nor do I play one on TV. And yet, in my personal movement through space and time in a human meat suit, in the past year, 2 years, I have really been looking towards the planetary and galactic movements and people whose expertise lies in those fields. I've been really leaning on them as broadening surround sound to inform my own thought process, my own sort of library of information. This has seemed increasingly relevant and, interestingly enough, because you can't make this up and because everything is interconnected, the more I learn, the more applied nourishment I get from astrological and planetary movements and people's descriptions of how that interplays with our existence here on Earth. And so I'm really going to talk about the 2-week span of time between September 7th, which was Sunday, and September 21st, which is a new moon in the year of 2025. And the open window of potential is around being able to dream and dream big. The 999 portal yesterday, if you're into numerology, if you track these things, 9 is about completion. It is about endings. And those are often hard for people, but interestingly, there's a lot of freedom and openness that comes with the ending of something. However, we are often ill-equipped to then know what to do with said openness. Shoot. So that is where I'm really going to tune in today. You know, James Hollis, the Jungian depth psychologist and author, Jim Hollis, his definition of grief is, if I recall correctly, a quantum of energy returning to you after the externalized focus of your energy is removed. So, be that a job, a relationship, a house, a country. If you leave that country, then you go through this grieving process. If someone dies or moves away, or if a relationship ends, you go through a grieving process because that place where you had put focus and energy goes away. And so then in that way, the grief is the arrival back of all this zhuzh, and you don't know what to do with it. Ah. And so we get a little hung up on, oh, I'm missing the thing that I used to place all this import on. I used to focus so much energy in that vector, and now I have it all here and it feels uncomfortable. I mean, there's so many micro relationships embedded in grief and in the loss and the passing of a thing. But interestingly enough, some of the discomfort is in fact just not knowing what to do with oneself, right? Being ill trained and ill prepared to have so much bandwidth returned unto you, sometimes all of a sudden, right? Okay. So I'd like to start first with let's just drop into body, drop into self, drop into breath, drop into here. Drop into now. Just start with a breath. Mm. Just realize you are breathing, right? Before you even drop into breath, right? Let's just realize, oh, I'm here. I'm breathing. Breath is always now. Breath is always now. And if it feels comfortable and if you can, when you take a nice big breath, kind of get to the top of the breath and see if you can top it up just a little bit and hover for a second at the top and then let empty happen. And let's just open up into this field. Top of the breath, top it up, hover, and then let empty happen. And just feel into the sound, feel into your body, maybe move your shoulders, wiggle your sacrum a little. Good, good, good. Mm, mm, mm. After this, I really don't know anybody who doesn't feel like they're in some sort of transition. Some people might not really consider it a state of loss, but everybody talks about how things are shifting, things are moving quickly, things are changing. And also, some people are having a lot of loss. And so in those moments, if you aren't taken over with the expression or the feelings of your grief, often we're sort of left with this, like, okay, if this is true, if I'm willing to accept reality, what do I do now? Right? How is this real? And if this is real, okay, then what? Then what? And this is nice. I'm going to switch frequencies. I opened with my 144 today. I'm going to swap over to the 174. And this is where we're going to drop inside, because everything, the next best step, always arises from the inside, right? Everything is an inside job. Everything is an inside job. Everything is an inside job. Okay, you say, Rebecca, fantastic. Thanks for that. And again, here I am sitting thinking, what next? What do I do? So yesterday, I saw an acupuncturist and and also a psychologist, I think she was, talk about cultivating discernment. And that is it it's the inner job of listening in and discerning what is right for us. That is then where the next best step arises from. And so I really want to share. I'm going to stop tuning for just a second, and I'll actually put some vibratory forks. So she talked about the acupressure point of the small intestine, which is our discernment region in our digestive tract. And she said that the small intestine 19 point is in the hollow just in front of the ears. And it's sort of most easily identified when you open your jaw, that sort of gap that happens. I guess that's your small intestine 19. And she said that the Chinese medicine name for this point is listening palace. Ooh. So let's arrive and focus in for just a moment. I'm putting vibratory forks on my listening palace points, but if you want to just tap lightly or even just find it and imagine yourself in an inner chamber filled with quiet wisdom, and how would you listen in for what is the next best step for you? With the passing of things, with the changing of institutions and structures and thought forms that we were raised with, when all of these things fall away, we have to create something new. And that's wide open, right? That doesn't come in a pre-packaged form. That could look like anything, something new, when the genius, right? When from the ether, a new concept, not a recapitulated, repackaged, regurgitated, rebuffed prior concept gets put out again. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about new ways. Dreaming without borders. What if there were no fence line? What if you weren't hemmed in even to like gravitational pull? What if you weren't hemmed into your concept of time? What if you weren't hemmed in by your ideas of resources or what it takes to make a thing? Wow, okay, yeah. And then one of the other group opportunities that I participated in yesterday, one of the presenters talked a lot about the aliveness of things. I have been really following Dr. David Clement's work, and he speaks so beautifully of living energetics. And I have a very real and felt experience of that. And then yesterday, someone completely different was just talking about how our concept of matter being dead and static, that things being sort of solid, and whatever, like we know conceptually, oh, there's more space than solid in an atom, and technically we're more not solid than we are solid, except we just rely and we constantly keep the fence line of, yeah, but I'm a solid meat suit and I'm deteriorating, and that's just the way it is. Okay, what? Oh, what if that weren't true? What if that weren't true? What if you could change that? Not even could change that. There's no change. What if you realized that that fence line is a self-imposed impediment? That was a ruse. What a maroon, right? It's just, yeah. And interestingly enough, how freeing and fascinating and like simultaneously terrifying. Okay, what if I could shapeshift? What if I could be in two places at once? What if the raw materials, whatever they may be, to make my brain and heart child come true, what if they were abundant and ready? Like, what if my back porch were filled with them right now? What if I could just hold out my hand and have it arrive boop, right in there? What? Yeah, 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 yeah. That much freedom, that much capacity, that much capability. It sounds real sexy, right? But it's a little bit daunting because then it's like, what would I make? What would I do? What would it be? What would it be for? Who would it be for? Who would it benefit? Would it even be beneficial? If you're really honest, how do you think? What's your vector? What is your, what slipstream are you in? Yeah, shoo-wee. Okay, there we go. Turn toward and tune into the open expanse of aliveness in you and for you. Instead of your life being like navigating a raft down a water tube that was hemmed in and covered over, and you might get wet, but there was really only one way to go, right? One way through. What if the sort of tubing just fell away and you were realized that your little raft was just in this wide open expanse of dancing light and undulating landscape? How would you navigate? Where would you want to go? How much would you want to see? and experience. What quality of self would you show up with to captain that vessel? And what if that wide open, undulating landscape was sort of like the wardrobe in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? Like I'm transmitting this from the greater Atlanta, Georgia area. And Georgia has a coast, but it's like, what if I launched my ship from there and wound up in Narnia? What if I could go anywhere? What if I could make anything?